Hi guys, in this video I'm going to be reviewing the ZOHD Dart XL. This is a plug and play aircraft, so you simply need to add your own receiver and battery and you're ready to fly. I will be adding FPV gear to this model too, as that is what it's specifically designed for. This plane and all of the gear that I've installed in it was purchased from Banggood, and I'll be putting links in the video description below. Okay, so in this video I'm going to be looking at the parts that I've installed and showing you where I've installed them. I'm also going to be showing you some flight footage, and then unfortunately we're going to be looking at how it fares in a crash and my attempt to repair and remade in it. But to start with, we're going to look at my first impression of this aircraft out of the box. My first impression of this plane is that it does look and feel better quality than I expected. I do love the fact that you can put the whole thing together in just about 2 minutes without using any glue. These vertical stabilizers, you simply slot them into the top of the wing. And then if I turn them over, you'll see on the underside, you simply just twist this plastic connector to lock them in place. On the underside of this wing, you'll see we already have the electronics installed, so the servo and all the linkage is put in place for you. And you can remove this piece of foam on each wing to install electronics, and then you have this nice channel for the cable along here. On the wings, they have these two servo extensions. One is already being used by the servo, and then you have this one which is spare. So any electronics you put out on the end of the wing, up there, you can simply just plug it into here. And you have this connector on the end here, so when you slide the wing on, this automatically connects the electronics to the main part of the plane. Inside the electronics bay at the back here, you'll notice that the ESC and motor are already pre-installed with all the cabling. The pre-installed ESC is a ZOHD 30 amp. It also comes with instructions so you can fully reprogram it to your needs. This also has a 5V 3 amp BEC built in. The motor is also a ZOHD brand. This is a 2216 1300 kV. And in the box with the Dart you do get the 9 by 4.5 pre-balanced prop. Back inside the electronics bay here, you'll see that there are two cables opposite the connector on the side of the wing. One is for plugging in your Elevon servo, and the other one is for the electronics that you've placed out on the wing here. Down here you can see there is a plywood base designed for a flight controller. It has the 4 hexagon shapes in the same distance apart as the standard flight controller. Now moving on to the front compartment. This is a magnetic hatch that you just simply pull off, and inside you can see we have the plywood for a battery tray and also a battery strap ready in place and an XT60 connector. At the front we have this nose cone which is designed to take an FPV camera and your HD camera here. So what ZOHD have done here is they've provided multiple foam inserts which allow you to install whichever HD camera it is you have, whether it be a camera in the form factor of a standard GoPro, a GoPro Session, or something like the Runcam 2. I do really like this design feature, and I think it's just one less thing you need to worry about in getting your plane ready for the field. On this plane I'm going to be running 2 of my quad batteries, which are the Tattoo R-Line 1554S. With 2 of them it hits CG perfectly in this arrangement. And at the front I'm going to be running my Foxeer FPV camera and the Runcam 2 for my HD. On the left wing I'm going to have my FreeSky 2.4 GHz receiver, which is an XM+. In the electronics bay at the back here I have the Omnibus F4 Pro board with iNav installed. Because this board doesn't supply power to your servos, I can have this small 5V BEC just here, and I have a homemade LC filter here to get nice clean power supply to my video gear. If you're thinking about getting the same board for iNav, the one thing I do like about it is it's quite cheap at only around $20. But the things I don't like about this one is that the wiring is not quite as simple as, for example, the Maytec wingboard, because you do have to supply power to the servo separately. And also I find that the current sensor is not very accurate and it's hard to get configured in a way that it gives an accurate reading. These little black thumb screws here are what holds the wing on to the aircraft, and for me this was quite bad positioning because, as you can see, once your flight controller is installed it's pretty hard to get to them and wouldn't be very easy to remove them. My GPS receiver is just going to be located on top of the electronics bay cover here. I just pierced a hole in the canopy and then used the supplied sticky pad to secure the GPS in place. Out on the right wing I have a 5.8 GHz video transmitter, and with that I'm using this Foxeer antenna. Looking at the underside of the wing, this is the FreeSky receiver. The great thing about these is they're so small, they're so light, and they're also really cheap. To secure this in place, I just cover it with some clear packing tape. I also do this along the cable on the inside of the wing to keep it nice and smooth. Out on the other wing, here is the Eachine TX801 video transmitter. This is switchable in power, and again I've just covered this in tape. With all this installed, my all-up weight was 1203 grams, which is just 3 grams over the recommended flying weight for this aircraft. So in the package with the Dart, you're meant to get 12 of these vortex generators, but unfortunately I only had 11, one was missing. Rather than waiting for replacements from China, I just designed my own and 3D printed them. These are on Thingiverse. I'll put a link in the video description for anyone else that would be interested in these. Before we start with the Maiden, I just wanted to address something that seems to bother some people, and that is that the Dart might be a copy of the Mini Drac, which is another aircraft that I own. For me, the similarities in these two aircrafts is, first of all, the Dart is a forward-swept wing, second of all, it's a similar size, and third of all, it's designed for FPV. For me, this is where the similarities end. I think that the Dart will really appeal to people that don't want to spend a lot of time constructing the airplane and putting it together. You don't need any glue and you can put it together really quickly. And it is a slow cruiser, and that's what it's sold as, whereas the Mini Drac isn't. The Mini Drac is a more aggressive wing, it is built for speed, and it's built a lot more robustly because of this. I've no doubt that the design of the Dart was probably inspired by the Drac, as it is such a popular plane, but I really do think that these two planes appeal to different markets. Okay, on to the Maiden of the Dart. It's nice and easy to get the CG correct in the field, as there are ridges on the bottom of the wings, so you can just balance them on your fingers. So far from the few launches I've done with this plane, it seems quite forgiving in that any way you throw it, it just seems to want to get in the air. Right from the very start, this plane was just flying so straight I didn't even need to use the auto trim on iNav. A characteristic that I came across quite early on in the flight that I didn't like at all was that when you increase the throttle to 100%, it rapidly climbs by itself even though the trimming is perfect. Another issue I came across was that even though I'm running 100% rates on this, I wasn't able to roll particularly quickly. This roll that I'm about to do here was moving the stick fully to one side, and it seems pretty slow roll to me. Now this might be caused by iNav, because I know that this does limit the servo travel slightly, so maybe this is an update I need to make in my iNav configurator. This was my very first flight, and after 9 minutes I decided to just come and land and just check the batteries. I still had 51% remaining on my batteries after that 9-minute flight. So I changed out my batteries for new ones and went out for a second flight. Unfortunately, this one was not as successful because my friend decided to follow me with his quad and get a little bit too close. In fact, if you listen carefully, you'll hear the moment he takes out my elevon.
I think you hit me.
Yeah, you definitely hit me, and here it is from his point of view. And here it is from my point of view. At this point I didn't hold out any hope for the Dart being in good condition. As you can see from these images, the nose was completely ripped off, the battery tray was destroyed, the wings had cracks in them. It wasn't exactly surprising considering the angle and the speed it came down at. Here you can see where my friend's propeller went straight through the elevon. At this stage the Dart was in pretty bad shape, but I thought that the challenge of getting it back in the air again would be a fun one. So the first thing I did was use Fusion 360 to design some new elevons for me to 3D print. This was the only part that was actually missing. Putting the nose back together was just simply a case of using hot glue. My only concern with the 3D printed elevons was the weight difference. The original ones weighed 7 grams each, and my new ones, printed with a 60% infill, weighed 24 grams. This wasn't a huge issue in the end. I simply had to move my batteries forward a small amount just to ensure that the correct CG was hit. I've now uploaded these to Thingiverse, so I'll put a link in the video description to those for anyone else that's interested in printing them. So this is the sad state my dart was in after the crash. After a bit of hot glue and some 3D printed elements, here were the results. I have to say I was pretty happy with how it was looking after my repair job. I was looking forward to seeing how it would fly. Now it was time for the remaiden. On this launch, I actually didn't touch the aileron stick until it had been in the air for a good 3 or 4 seconds. As you can see, it flew so nice and straight out my hand. There we go, the dart flying after it's been smashed to bits with new 3D printed elevons and a lot of hot glue. So I'm just going to summarise on what I think are the positive and negative points of this aircraft. On the positive side, the first item on my list is the fact that this comes mostly pre-built and ready to fly. For people that don't like the thought of having to build the plane and buy all the glues and tools, this could be a very attractive selling point. The second point on my list is that its thoughtful design makes installing electronics nice and easy. And by this I mean things like the electronics bays out on the wings with the pre-cut channels, and also those nice connectors on the wing that allow you to connect to the electronics. And you also have that nice modular nose with the different pieces of foam, allowing you to insert your HD camera no matter which one you have. Third on my list is that this is nice and easy to launch. Some wings can be quite awkward to launch, but this one seems to be very forgiving. No matter which way you throw it, it just wants to get in the air. So my fourth point is that when this thing isn't at full throttle, it really does feel nice and stable when you're cruising around. It is quite enjoyable to fly. Point 5 is attention to detail. I quite like things like the leading edge of the wings having protection. The compartment bays are quite nicely thought out, and the vortex generator is a nice little touch. Now the last part of my list, which is personal preference really to everybody, I think that the plane is actually quite a good looking one. Moving on to the negative side of things, unfortunately for me, the worst part about this plane is the fact that it pulls up on full throttle. That is really annoying, and after reading up on this, I'm not too sure it's something you can solve. My next point is that the nose is a weak point, as you've already seen from my video. If you crash it, you're going to have a problem with the nose. It's not going to withstand an impact like a normal traditional wing might. And my last point is a minor one, and that is that the thumb screws for the wings are just not in a very good position. It just means that it would be a bit of a pain if you want to try and dismantle this and take it apart for transportation. Having said all of that, this wing is a fun one to fly. It's not the best performing one you're going to find on the market, but I can definitely see its appeal. It has plenty of advantages, and if you do end up buying one, I wish you the best of luck with it. On that note, I'm going to leave you with a little bit of flight footage. Thanks for watching. Cheers.